Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Barenaked Health Podcast. I'm on the line today with Nicole Devaney, and I'm glad to have her back after we were just catching up, saying it's been 8, 9 years since she was last on the show. Nicole, welcome back. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Yeah, so happy to be back again.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I mean, I know there's a lot to catch up on in 8, 9 years, but if you wouldn't mind kind of sharing maybe what's been what's been really resonating with you lately, just as far as health, wellness, whatever that might look like.
Well, as you know, trained at the CHEK Institute,
Yeah.
we look at health being a holistic journey. And if you ever get an email from me, my email sign off says that health is a journey, not a destination. And so it's continually ever unfolding for me. And I teach what we learn is something called the Six Foundation Principles, which if you get these six things right, you typically won't need to work with a doctor or be in pain or have disease come and teach you something. And that is thinking, breathing, drinking, eating, moving, and sleeping. And for me, I find that I like to explore these foundations almost in a rotational way where it's important to have all of them in our lives as regular as possible, but I tend to make one a highlight. Sometimes for a month and sometimes for a year. That will be like my journey of like really dialing in disciplines around that particular foundation principle. And, I've explored all of them to the depths after 20 years of doing this, and it's so fun to find myself right now. I'm coming back around to the foundation principle of thinking. So we think like 60
What,
to
right.
90,000
What is
thoughts a
thinking?
day.
Like, why is that such a big deal, though? Yeah, like, please dive into that.
Well, coming from more of my shamanic background, I oftentimes will share that our thoughts become our words, become our deeds. And our body is always listening to what we are speaking, whether that's out loud or in our mind. But most of us are usually not fully present in our minds. We are in this society doing what we have to do, or in the future, what do we got to go shopping for? Have you ever driven from point A to point B and looked back and said, "Wow, how did I ever get there? What lights did I hit?" Because your mind is forward thinking usually, and in some cases, past thinking, which oftentimes is equal to depression, depending on what those thoughts are, if we're like ruminating and what's been difficult in our life. And so when we actually begin to get present and notice, a lot of us are thinking ourselves out of wellness while doing all these extra efforts physically to be well. And most of those thoughts tend to come from the first developmental years in our life when our prefrontal cortex wasn't online. It didn't know. It was just downloading the programmed information from our scheduled channel of our parents and our siblings. And so it's been fun for me. I've deep dived this several times throughout my life, and more recently, I'm taking it to not just the thought process but our verbal words, which we speak, that create even a stronger, in the beginning, there was light and the word. And through light and the vibration of sound, we can literally create matter. We are writing our own story. Our words are spells, and we're spell casting. And I've known this from an intellectual point, and recently diving in with a few teachers of mine and getting somebody else to witness me and my words and knowing what things like saying want or not or just or like or and all these little nuances that find their way into our vocabulary, we are becoming a tuning fork. And it's either like bringing us two steps forward towards what we're manifesting and asking for, or speaking us right out of our dreams.
What have you, as far as that tuning fork goes, what have you been noticing for yourself, like with the thing in the thinking and like the words that you've had to become aware of for yourself, and or when you're working with somebody, like are there specific ones or beyond those, or are those like really the take home ones of like these are the ones that come up that a lot of times have to be adjusted?
Right. So, like, when we have pain in our body or disease, we oftentimes want to be well. We desire to be well. But when we use the word want, it's basically stating to the universe that you are without, you have lack thereof. So when I want to be healthy, I will continue to receive more of wanting to be healthy. And so, words like I desire, which the etiology of desire is to sire, to father, I desire health, or I choose health, or if like I am health is too far reaching, like if you say something and you don't feel like you're a vibrational match to it, then you might be creating more harm than good because it's not just your words, but it's the frequency of your emotions behind your words. So whatever you're saying, you're either saying truth and you feel the truth and it begins to harmonize the environment to bring into you, just like a tuning fork. If you hit one and you let it ring, another one that's attuned to it will begin ringing as well. So we in Czech use something called the coin drill. Have you ever heard of coin drill? Yeah.
Yes.
So one side of the coin is what you're desiring, and one side of the coin is what you don't desire, or maybe where you're at that's brought you to the contrast that's brought you to the desire. And so if I had somebody in front of me who wanted to lose weight, and I just told them, all you got to do is say, I'm skinny, I'm skinny, I'm skinny. Well, if they're saying that, but that's creating shame or guilt in their body because they don't agree that that's the truth, then they're just vibrating at the frequency of shame, and they're going to bring more experience to their life that will create shame. So in the coin drill in Czech, we talk about the center of the coin, which is the potential. And if right now I'm feeling overweight and my desire is to be skinny, the potential might sound something like this. Even though I'm not exactly enjoying the size of my body and the weight I am right now, I know I have the capacity to change it. I know that people have been in my shoes just exactly like where I'm at right now. And through the guidance of others and the small disciplines that they apply to their life, they got to the point where their body was something that they could fully love the size and shape of. And that's possible for me too. And I'm excited, bringing in the enthusiasm of that vibration then can start to ease people into this like, um, rewiring their brain from beating themselves up to hope and acceptance for where they are.
Even as you were saying that, like I was feeling like the vibration. Like you could see, like you took a second, collected yourself before you started uh to really flip the way that you were looking at that, right? Or again, like as somebody should be saying this in their head out loud, whatever it is. But I mean, I could feel that immediately in my heart, right? Where it was a complete difference in the way that you said it. And here's where it just like comes down to that frequency, right? You said the word like this is everything. Like the frequencies are what are truly like manifesting the universe. So it's it's funny because it's to me it's so simple. However, people make it so hard, really, when it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, and it seems simple coming out. Like I says, I learned this intellectually a long time ago. And the more I'm becoming conscious and stepping into awareness, what we're actually asking people to do is rewire deep, well-worn neurotransmitter grooves of ways of seeing the world and seeing themselves. And, if I were to take this like example to an engram, a muscle engram in the gym, it takes me probably somebody who's never squatted before, 400 squats to pattern in their brain and their body how to do it right. But if somebody has a faulty squat pattern, I'm going to have to take them slowly and chunking the movement down to rewire how they do it right. And then they're going to have to do it right 10,000 times to disconnect an old pattern and rewire a new one. That is not easy. It takes 80% more oxygen and nutrients in the brain to do that rewiring. And so that's a squat. How many times do we squat a day? 30, 40, 50 if we're lucky. but we're thinking 60,000 times a day. So we've got some really well-worn grooves that if we don't make it a deep practice, I say oftentimes, if you like that self-help book, read it 100 times because it's oftentimes a page or two and then we put it down unless we figure out a way to pattern it into our life. So as I've been like going through this next layer of manifestation, a couple of things to the formula that have been added that are just so powerful is one, um, this concept of radical acceptance. A lot of the times, people will try to spiritually bypass the heavy emotions. And what that does is bury it into the body. You know, you've heard a quote by Gabor Mate, the issues in the tissues. If we don't allow ourselves to feel the sadness or feel the anger of a certain situation, it will get stuck in the body and you'll have to see somebody like me or a doctor at some point because of the pain, because your body's been asking you to feel it. So the first part of the formula is like just every day I take a moment, usually on my dog walk, to radically accept what is and just be really honest that someone's like rubbing me wrong. I radically accept that, right now I have a little left hip pain and I'm learning from it. And so, um, first and foremost is when we radically accept, it gives permission for what is stuck to begin flowing.
So Nicole, before we go any further, like when you're saying like to give that radical acceptance, like is that what you're basically saying to yourself, or is
Out
it more than that? Okay.
People probably worry about me when I'm on dog walks these days because I'm really recognizing that it's one thing to bring it into the brain, but it's another thing to speak it out loud and give it a vibration for it to flow into your field of energy and just allow it to move.
What about writing it as well?
I think journaling's excellent to do. Yeah, it slows us down oftentimes and usually gives us more insight because as we're journaling, it helps us to sort of, well, this is getting a little woo, but we have lots of guides and guardians and ancestors that are rooting for us. And it's almost when we begin asking questions and journaling, it's an invite for them to begin also communicating back. And some of us aren't really at that place where we can accept communication from them in certain ways, but it will come through in our writing oftentimes.
Going off of that, Nicole, this is actually more of, I guess, a personal question than for me too. Is like, okay, I do a lot of journaling, a lot of writing, like dreams, just reviewing my day, reflections, family, patience, whatever it might be, right? I oftentimes just find myself like I have my power animals, I have my um, saints, sages, gurus that I meditate to every morning. But I want to say like when I'm in my head, I almost want well, I usually try and connect with my soul and ask my soul, what do you do to try and utilize everybody rather than just your own soul?
Well, I like to just bring it through my soul, first and
Okay.
foremost. And I'm very clear on who I'm inviting in beyond that. Like, I'm always grateful to invite in my guides. And then I oftentimes will say, like, my benevolent and healed ancestors.
Okay.
Um, and always inviting my ancestors who weren't fully healed in their lifetimes to, be supported and do that work. But if I receive information that comes through, I run it through my soul. Is this right for me? Just like we would maybe muscle test if we should eat a certain food or not. If I get some kind of actionable guidance that doesn't feel like just pure love in my body, then I'm going to run it through so I'm going to soul test it. Yeah, which I'm guessing your listeners probably know at this
Well,
point.
if not, what I was actually going to say is quick describe the duckbill test there because I notice like so many times when I'm in the clinic and I have patients that come in like, oh, I went to somebody who does muscle testing. I'm like, okay, I mean, I could teach you to do that right now. They're like, no, 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 no. Like, no, this is like really specialized, like this and the other thing. I'm like, yeah, like we have 2 minutes. We can figure this out right now, right? Um, because it's to me, it's like a very simple thing. And it's like, really, I don't think that I remember anybody who hasn't been able to just kind of figure it out right away. But it's more that empowering things. Like they have to they oftentimes think like, well, I have to go see this special type of chiropractor who's done like all this muscle testing and this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, no, no, I'll teach you right now. Like it's very simple.
Right. Well, and I think that what makes that chiropractor a specialist is he does it all day. So there's a couple of things that might block soul testing, or let's say muscle testing. We're going to go
Yep.
muscle because we're talking
Right.
about the
Start
physical.
simple there. Yeah.
First and foremost, you have to be hydrated and well energized. You can get false answers, or maybe just not as easily attuned to the body. Once I know that I'm like in a place where I'm hydrated, you got to start with the smaller questions. Should I wear red or should I wear black on Nick's podcast? You know, tell me what I should wear. Not should I stay in this marriage or not? Those are not the type of questions you should
Little
start.
big to start with. Yeah.
So you want to, I have a course, a teaching that I do called Embodied Intuition. And we really need to be like children in play because when people get into their heads and think, oh, this isn't working, you are right. You are right. It won't work for you because you believe it. And if you're like, you know what, I'm just going to play and just see what this says, then there's less pressure. When there's that pressure to get an A in school or to be right or be loved, you're likely to put too much energy and get a mixed message. So yeah, so playing with the little things, and then the other thing is with the muscles. If there is an addiction, you may get a false answer. So, like, should I have the cookie? Well, yeah, my body is having a glucose drop. My insulin spiked way too high, spiked way too high from the last cookie. Now it's low. And these muscles are like, heck yeah, give me some glucose. And that's why, when we go through the teaching of the Institute, we start with muscle testing and we start with just playing. Just get in the store. Do I have the red apple? Do I have the green apple? And sure enough, over time, just like the chiropractor, over time, when he's doing his kinesiology on you and starts to see that, oh, this stuff really works, it's like that proof in the pudding that gives you the confidence to go better and deeper and stronger with it. Um, the soul testing is kind of next level where you take the muscles out of it, but you have to be really, really clear, a clear channel, excuse me, to feel. And again, if the questions are like big soul questions, like, do I quit my job? That might be best to not just do a single soul testing session. Bringing in guidance of valued friends or teachers or companions that you feel know a little bit more about you and the subject to gain more information while you're still posing the question to the universe. And so, something I've really played with and know for sure that there is not a single question that you can't ask that will go unanswered. You will always know the universe is always going to answer you. And sometimes it comes through soul testing, and sometimes it's just posing the question, and then the answers will begin to trickle in. Somebody recommends a book, you get an email, these little things that start to give you the information you need to know versus just a yes or a no. And sometimes that's the case is you're still asking your soul, but your soul's providing you with what you need to know.
Yeah. It's that's just a beautiful, I think, way to put it, right? Like your soul knows these answers. And to me, that's the other thing of starting to explore dreams as well. I think our soul is communicating with us, I mean, more than we can ever even imagine within our dreams. And it's learning to actually talk to our dreams now and ask them the questions too, to get even, I think, deeper answers.
Has yours been wild the last 3 nights with that big old full moon we had this weekend?
I
Just
wasn't
curious.
even, yeah, I mean, this week has just been bananas, but I also did like um, a strong mushroom journey last weekend. So I wasn't sure if it was more based off of that or the combination of all of this. Yeah.
Yeah, probably the combo.
Yeah. I hadn't even thought of the full. Okay, so see, there are things like because I've really only started trying to get into dreams more for the last year or so. I think on a much deeper level, I should say. I haven't even started equating it to looking out and yeah, what's also going on in the sky at the same time.
Yep, yep. Those celestial bodies do have an influence, especially La Luna. I was just curious. My dreams have been very strong the last 3 days, but I too also was in ceremony last weekend.
Okay. Um, okay. Share actually about then like how the celestial bodies are going to have an effect on that. Like why? I mean, I guess let's start with the moon. Like why the moon? Like what is that going to do to dreaming specifically?
Well, let's just start like physiologically.
Sure.
How much of your body is water?
Almost all of it.
Yeah, it's like 70 to 90%
Yeah.
depending on which expert you talk to.
Right.
And it's not just water, it's minerals, right? It's mineral water. And we are the microcosm of the macrocosm. So if we look at the Earth, its oceans are like 70% of the Earth's surface. What does the moon do to the oceans?
Changes the tides.
Yeah, brings it in, pulls it out, brings it in, pulls it out. If the moon can pull an ocean of water higher and lower, just imagine what it's doing to the cells of your body and the cells of this entire like planet.
Okay, that's pretty wild right there. Yeah, to think about that.
Right. And then if we think about water being a conduit, like when we're in a lake and a lightning storm comes, what are we told to do? Get out, right? And so if our thoughts, if we look at the neural pathways, our thoughts are actually little tiny electrical bolts. That's why we have to be well hydrated to receive higher learning messages because it's got to have a conduit. But if we're taking that conduit with the moon and rising it and then letting it ebb and flow like the tide, what is that going to do when we're subconscious, when we're in our dream state? Uh, let
Just to
alone
wake
the
up.
fact
Yeah.
that, we know as holistic health practitioners that it doesn't just wake up our thoughts, it also wakes up parasites. So if we are not healthy and we have an overgrowth of bacteria or parasites, those too are also getting more enlivened. And so, before we had light, for the last 150 years, we've had light and it's really disconnected us. For millions of years, our ancestors lived their life by the light of the sun and the moon. They had to determine whether the growing season was going to be long or short, and they could do that from the patterns that they saw. Eventually, they were also able to attune to these other planets. Not eventually, I mean, the other planets all have effects. And and the biggest thing is just about the slowing down and witnessing. I think that we live in such a fast-paced, artificial light society where if we didn't have uh, computers and cell phones and TVs, and we were just living in that rhythm of light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, and watching how the stars would move across the sky, eventually we would start to make correlations like, wow, when this is over here, this tends to create this in the tribe. And so certain planets got to be known for certain energies, like Mercury is the god of communication. So when Mercury is in retrograde, we oftentimes see communications beginning to go faulty or technology going a little haywire. Mars is the god of war, the planet of war. And energies can get really high. I mean, there's some good things about that. There's like passion and fire. And so my grandmother was an astrologer. She did the work for 30 years. And a lot of the times we think about astrology being like, oh, you have a sun sign. So like I'm an Aries. Do you know what your sun sign is?
Virgo.
Virgo. So we may read in the newspaper, this is how a Virgo acts, or this is how an Aries acts. But that's one planet. And all of them have a different pull on us. And so when we actually read what's called the natal chart of somebody, we're looking at where the sun was on the horizon, where the moon was, and where all the other planets were. And every 2 minutes that changes. So ultimately, like it not only is a matter of where they are, but where you are on the earth. So when you really get into the field of astrology, it's as individualized as a fingerprint. And when you start to play with it, again, I don't necessarily think of it as like This is how it's going to be for you no matter what. I think about astrology as a way of seeing this is some potential strengths that you have, and these may be some potential blocks that you might have to overcome. But it doesn't mean you're like stuck in stone with a reading.
Well, and I think that's the same thing with like a tarot reading being the same thing, right? Where it's like it doesn't mean that that's set in stone. Exactly. It's
Right.
like this is these are influences in your life right now for you, and
Yeah.
what are you going to do about it?
Yeah. So if our ancestors saw in the way that the sun and the moon was acting in the winter that it was going to be a very dry spring and summer, they would behave a little differently with how they'd water the crops and start to conserve water preemptively.
Do you have any good resources, or like where would you recommend people start with astrology if they want to start diving into it?
This is so fun. I actually have this right here. I'm in front of my
Perfect.
My grandmother wrote a book and
Okay.
she wanted it to be for children. It was a
Yeah.
myth. And it's out of print, but there's a gentleman who reads it on YouTube, and it's called Once Upon a Zodiac, a Piscean Fantasy. And he just reads it from cover to cover. And it's like a children's tale that instead of making it, you have to learn what this planet does and what that planet does, it turns the planets into kings or the signs into kings and the planets into knights, and they're inhabiting the zodiac, which is a 12 space house, and you get to see how they interact with each other.
That's
And
fantastic.
yeah, it's a really fun story. Each king has a certain phrase word, like Aries is I am, and Taurus is I have. And you just get to kind of learn a little bit more about those particular ways that that sign behaves. Yeah, super cool.
See, that's and obviously not just for kids because okay, and I'm sure you're probably somewhere, right? It's like I have a list of books like thousand long, right? I mean, just different things you want to learn about, study, just dive into, right? And sometimes it's where do you start, right? But if you have at least a simple foundation of that, uh, now you can at least get into the practical aspect of it.
Well, and then you can start to like tempo out your year. Like, oh, we're going into Aries season. This is the beginnings. This is the new breath. The other thing I was going to recommend with that book is going to, there's a website called astro.com. And if you know your birth date and your birth time and your birthplace, putting that all in, and it's going to give you something called your natal chart. It's going to show you your map of your stars. And I do it for my child and my lover. And then I want to know the three main signs that are going to give you kind of the beginnings of somebody's thumbprint is going to be their sign, their moon sign, and their rising sign. Our sun sign is typically how people portray and see us. And our moon sign is how we kind of feel on the inside, which sometimes we read about like a Virgo and we're like, that's not me at all. Like, and then you read about your moon sign, you're like, oh, that's me. And then you have your rising sign, which is typically how you like try to show up in the world. And so having those three is at least a beginning formula as you start to listen to this myth of the kings and their knights. You're like, oh, that's my son and that's my daughter. Oh, no wonder why they always act this way. Yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic, actually. But just as a resource to understand things, because I know personally, like that's something I struggle with is like, uh, I don't understand why people just don't get along, right? It just doesn't make sense to me, right?
Yeah.
So I think to have something like that, it actually would be very good for me because then it can kind of spell it out for me rather than trying to have to like, okay, well, what is it about them that's so different?
Right. And then you go into the elemental, the alchemy. So in this story, they have chariots, and some of them are made of earth and are really lavish and flourishing and nourishing, and others are made of fire. And so each sign has an element. And as an example of like learning how to work with somebody, I'm a triple fire, and my daughter is a triple earth.
Okay.
And I would be like, what is wrong with you? And she's like, Mom, people don't move at your pace. And she would like move at the pace of a mountain. She would even like the way she cleans is everything ends up in piles like mountains. And 3 weeks later, the mountains might move. And I couldn't wrap my head around how that works as a triple fire of like, just get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's no, that's a really big deal. I think for people to just give that simplistic understanding of one another. Because exactly what you said is like, well, why aren't they doing that? Why aren't they doing that? It's like, well, now you can actually understand, like, oh, that's why they're not doing that, or it's different than the way I'm doing it too, right?
And then to take it to the next layer is, what is this bringing me? Not making it right or wrong, but like there's a gift that my daughter gave me through the way that she slows my pace down and helps me go a little more yin, where I also supported her in learning ways of picking up her flames. So like that's another really beautiful thing is understanding the alchemy of other people is perfect for them, while also saying, I've attracted this person and this experience to add to my elemental table of what it is I'm bringing in.
So Nicole, one thing I want to actually unpack a little bit on there. You said like the body is a microcosm like of the macrocosm, right? And this was something that you had said in our first talk a few years back, right? I want to take this as far as the way you would kind of put it is like our bodies. Then you said like our bodies are microcosms of like the macrocosmic world, right? How do you see that today? Like, where are we at today with that? I want to say more as like you could say like for the United States, for like a global society, wherever you want to go with that.
Yeah, I mean, I still stand by that and I witness it. Like our veins and our arteries are the rivers and streams, and our microbiome is the bugs of the soil. And the sun that heats the earth is like the metabolism. It's like what burns down and creates and realchemizes something anew. And that's why, more and more I tune out of what's happening worldly. I think it's important to have some knowledge, and to the degree that it causes me stress that I can't do something about it proactively, then I also have to say, well, what is my biggest role? And that for me is to know that my body is going to reflect what's happening on the earth. And if I can teach more people to heal their bodies, the 100th monkey, right? We all know that like they train monkeys to use like fruit for um, monetary means. And next thing you know, monkeys on other islands that weren't taught to do that are doing that. And so, as we choose into waters that are healthy and clean our own arteries and veins, as we choose into foods that haven't been sprayed with pesticides and herbicides, and our microbiome has a chance to bounce back, or animals that haven't been injected with antibiotics because they're sick from eating those grains and not seeing the sunlight, you know, we heal. And as we heal, then our family and friends begins to say, what are you doing? I want to know. You look and feel better. You're vibrant. You're not complaining so much anymore. And they share those little seeds, and sometimes they sprout and sometimes they wait to germinate. But I think that, the way that we truly heal what's kind of happening on the planet is our behaviors, that when we're in alignment with nature and eating and drinking and sleeping with the rhythms of the light and those things, that we are like doing our part. Because one, we like elevate our own vibration. We are tuning forks. And if enough of us attune to the frequency of hope, then we're going to walk into a room, and those who are ready are going to attune to that frequency without even hearing what they should eat or drink. But for me, if I lift this up and spend more than 3 minutes on social media and there's enough information about whatever's happening, that also changes my frequency. And I think that there's an agenda with that. Yeah.
There's more than an agenda with that, right? And I heard somebody on a podcast recently, I forget which one it was, but they basically said uh, um, everything is MK Ultra, right? I'm like, what? Yeah, that sounds about right. Like, really, it goes deeper and deeper, I think, than most people are willing to accept. And MK Ultra, for people who don't mind, MK actually stands for mind control, right? Like this is, I mean, documented. I think back to the 50s or 60s, but that's just documented. So it was probably some different form. I mean, between before that, excuse me. So it's everything that is, like you said, just social media as an example, right? It's like, well, this is layers and layers deeper than most people can even begin to conceptualize. And I forget the exact quote. I know Paul's talks about it. I've heard other people say it, but it's like it's harder to convince people what of the truth and convince them that they're wrong. Like something along those lines, like where it's like, no, that's actually not the truth, but it's been spouted so many times that it's actually hard to just disbelieve any of that at that point.
Right. And so I love that you brought up MK Ultra because the very techniques that they're using with that mind control are available to us.
Please tell more.
So I think about the five foundation principles of breathing, drinking, eating, moving, and sleeping is tilling the soil and watering the soil. But I think about our thoughts as the seeds. So what are they doing with MK Ultra? They are repeating a belief through as many avenues as they can until we pick it up as our own, right? So we can do the same for us. But like I said, it takes several, there's only three ways to really program the subconscious mind. Did you know that?
Maybe
And
on that one, I'm not positive. Yeah.
yeah, well, the subconscious mind is, we've seen those images of like a iceberg and that the conscious is the tip and the subconscious as
Okay.
really what's running the game. And the MK Ultra knows this, and so they're utilizing these subliminal messages or not so subliminal over and over and over and over, brought to you by, we've heard it in the news where they all repeat the same line. Well, we can begin repeating the same lines. And what that looks like is, well, let's go back to the three ways you can program the subconscious. We got to get the bottom half of the iceberg or the bottom 90% online with what the top 10% wants. So, one of the first ways is by repetition. You heard me say you like that self-help book, read it 100 times. Most of us will read something and get inspired about it just to be on to the next podcast next week. And
Or the
so
next self-help book or the next coursework
the
or
next ceremony and the
whatever it
next
is.
intention.
Yeah.
Like, if you really want to bring something to life, you got to plant that seed and you got to come back and you got to water it and you got to make sure it has sunlight. And if you really want that intention to work, you should sing to it and bring life to it every day and create a container for it. Create an altar that represents that intention that you go to every day and you work with through words. And so this is where affirmations come in, and I like to now call them decrees. I'm not just affirming, but I am decreeing. I am saying to the universe, I am worthy. I am love. I am healthy. I am aligned. I am unique. And whatever those are. And if maybe I can't believe into I am, like there's a thing that needs to be explored that might be a belief that's somatically stuck in my body, I will do that. But before then, I can also use words like I choose to. I choose to feel my worth. I choose to feel. I choose to feel. I choose to feel. It's safe for me to feel. Beginning to use words over and over and over again. And so I have 3 times a day that I state my decrees. It's upon waking. It's upon my meditation. I get done with meditating or in dog walking. So I'll do radical acceptance and then I'll do my decrees dog walking. And then I do them right before bed as I'm getting really sleepy and my subconscious is kind of coming online and we're going into theta brain waves. So the first way to reprogram the subconscious mind that is going to tell you whether you're going to drink coffee in the morning and have a cigarette outside on your porch, or if you're going to go to the red light and do meditation and go do an ice bath. Like those choices are all programmed into your subconscious. Um, and this is also why they say microdosing is so good because those beliefs and behaviors are oftentimes gone through so many times that they're so well rooted in the brain. It's like the same hill you've been sledding down year after year. If you want to take a new path, sometimes that old path is really hard to get out of. And microdosing in these beautiful medicines that are available to us from the earth are all about snowing and creating a fluffy layer of snow for us to choose a new choice. But we have to be an active participant and not just go to the coffee maker after ceremony. So the other two ways that we program the subconscious mind is hypnosis. We put the conscious to sleep, and once the conscious is asleep, as long as we're not asleep, we can begin to program the subconscious mind. So that can be somebody who actually hypnotizes you. Another way in which it can be done is we teach in CHEK something called a gong or 100-day practice of one movement of Qigong, one movement and one mantra. So my first gong ever was 260 days minus like 2 days because I missed them. You have to start over again. But every day I would come in and I would say as I inhaled, I am receiving love. And as I exhaled, I am giving love. And I'm receiving. And for the first 80 days, it was a chore. And then there got to this place where I was starting to feel the decompression of my mind being able to focus long enough on that one thing that my conscious mind said, oh, this again, this is so boring. She's just at the park saying the same words. And soon enough, that conscious mind goes to sleep, and my subconscious was there to be seen and to be felt and to be worked with. And so we can either pay a hypnotist or we can start to learn how to reach those brainwave states the hypnotists put us in and then program ourselves while we're there. The third way, and this is your MK Ultra, is subliminal messaging. So, we with our conscious minds can only take in so much percentage of what's happening around us, but the subconscious mind is taking it all in, millions and millions of bits of information. And so they can use things like images within images. You've seen the old commercials with Coke where they pour the ice or Pepsi and it says sex in the ice. And your subconscious mind goes, oh, if I drink Pepsi, I'm going to have sex. Disney's done some worse things. And they know this works so well that they lost a battle in the Supreme Court. The movie theaters used to use subliminal programming to get us to go buy popcorn and to get us to go get drinks. And the supermarkets were using it to buy certain brands. And when that was discovered that it was being played under the elevator music that we're all listening to, there was a law that was passed that they can't do that anymore. But we can do that for ourselves. So there's lots of beautiful subconscious music on YouTube now and Spotify for free where you can just like, I want to program abundance. And it's just this nice flute music that you're just listening to all day, but underneath it, somebody's got another recording saying, you are rich, you are worthy, you're going to do this. And you don't, it doesn't help if you listen to it once and then be like, okay, check. Let that be your morning ritual to put one thing on for 3 months and start to witness all of a sudden your mind chatter begin to be like, oh yeah, we'll figure that out. I've got all sorts of opportunities coming my way. You're like, whoa, where'd that come from? And you're like, don't even from that recording. Yeah.
Okay, so you talk about the importance of words. I've this is one word that I've explored a lot. That's why I want to hear what you have to say. Subconscious versus non-conscious.
Sub is under,
Yeah.
non is not existing. So when you have non-conscious, you don't have a consciousness. But subconscious would be to be under the consciousness, right?
I
I'm
hadn't even heard it described that way, so that's why I'm so glad that I just posed this to you.
well,
Because
and I'm pulling that off the top of my head. I should probably.
well, no, but it's already making me think about it, Nicole, because I was looking non-conscious, not as like not there, just not aware of at the time. Like that was my feeling about the word, right? So it's like I didn't like sub because it just seemed like it was below, but I don't think of it as something that's below because I think of it as an equal part of the conscious. So that's why I was never drawn towards the subconscious, and that's why I was like non because it's non that it's not there, more non like just not aware of it at the current time. So that's, but it's still making me think now. I don't know that I like either of them actually.
Think about it this way. I mean, I'm gonna grab something.
Yeah, yeah, please, please.
We know with the Czech totem pole, the spirit
Sure.
bird,
Yeah.
that the sun represents the consciousness, right? So when the sun sets for the day, does it mean there's no sun?
Still there.
Is that sun still affecting our earth?
Absolutely.
Right. So think about that as your conscious and your subconscious. Still there, something that we don't see, but it still has a great deal of effect on the earth, right? Yeah.
I guess certain words I just get hung up on, and that's where this is for me. It's like I still don't resonate with that either. Like that's why I'm trying to, I think, get better, more clear on what that word is for me, to be able to have that um, true resonance of like how it feels correct around me then too.
Yeah. Well, you almost make me want to look up the etiology of it. Can we do
I
that?
want to, yeah. I mean, this is something that I definitely want to know more on. Please do.
Yeah,
Um,
let's just have some fun. Thank you for
yeah.
uh all these search engines.
Well, and while you're looking there for a moment, right, and that's where I want to say too is like, for me, when I was at a craniosacral class that I took last year, right, uh, something came up within me. My chest just started radiating just this white light, and all that came to me was radiate love, radiate love. And now for the last 6 months or so, that's been my mantra all the time, right? So it's like where you're saying like it's just like starts coming up, coming up. It's like I hear myself then saying that sometimes in my head, right? Where I'm not even aware that I'm doing it. It's just like, oh yeah, like it's right there, right? And it just feels good to have that. So knowing that really, like you said, like the repetition, like it's almost like you are bringing yourself into that self hypnosis on this. So it's like all of these are going to help with that reprogramming.
Yes. Yes. And you know what's interesting about like decrees and affirmations, if there's anything in your field that is not true, for what you're speaking into your field. So, for example, I'll give you the one that I was using, I am worthy. If there is any experience or belief that was had in your life up until that point that's made you believe something other than that, it's going to go from the subconscious, which, by the way, I looked it up. Uh, Sub meaning under or below, and conscious meaning aware or knowing of oneself. Con meaning with. So below and knowing of oneself. So it's like the it's the unseenness. And so if there's anything in my subconscious that doesn't align with the decree, I am worthy, it's going to come up. And sometimes that comes up, we talk about in CHEK having a dream or a pain teacher. So if we're not letting it come into our awareness through, working towards something, sometimes it can come up as a rupture, which looks like a death, a divorce, a disease, a pain. And in reality, it's like this opportunity to bring in awareness. Hold on just a second.
Yeah, please.
Okay. Let you hang out. Okay. I have my stepdad came a little early, but it's okay.
Oh,
He's
okay.
hang out.
Okay.
Hi. Okay. So, yeah, back to where we were.
Sure. Um, okay. So where I guess this is almost because I want to just make this relatable for somebody then too. Where does somebody start for the subconscious? Like, where are these simple places? And I know you talked about like the repetition, the hypnosis, like being aware of the subliminal messaging. Like, what are things that you either do for yourself or like recommend for clients or just people in class? Like, how do you kind of tell them, like, okay, here's an easy way to start with this, to be able to identify the things, but also help yourself change?
Well, the biggest thing I think is creating the time and the quiet that is necessary to develop practices that will allow you to first become aware of how even in the silence you're uncomfortable and you just begin to think more and more and more. Most of us do. I'm one of them. And if you know, I've heard that if you were to choose to become a monk, and a Buddhist monk and you were to enter an ashram, for the first 3 years, they don't teach you to meditate. They teach you to focus. So you are to look at like a candle or a flower for hours a day. And when your thoughts go from anything from your breath and that candle, then you just have to bring them back and you have to bring them back. So basically, you have to learn how to center your mind before you can go to no mind. And it's only in that place of no mind that we can really like begin to access the subconscious. That's why meditation is so beneficial for people. And, sometimes meditation is not easy for people to break into because their mind is so busy. So we use moving meditations or things like that. Um, However, like even one step before that is just the desire. I desire to, well, and I'm not a big fan of like doing trauma work, to be honest with you. I think that it's so
Yeah,
needed.
explain what you mean by that, please.
Yeah, I think that when you look, you will find. So if you have a strong intention of like, I'm going in to find this shadow, we all have them. It's all there for us. I'm a big fan of this is my desire of where I'm going. I want to have a healthy, beautiful relationship with a soulmate. If anything is in the way of that, in other words, trauma that created experiences that are frozen in your body or beliefs, that will rise up on the path to be healed. So it's not like I don't say don't do the work. I'm just saying that in of its own of like I'm going to spend a year digging up my trauma. Well, you could spend 20 years and still keep digging and keep finding. And so I'm a big fan of like letting our desires of what it is we're trying to create allow for whatever might be a rock in the path of our creation to be an opportunity to learn about it, learn about the way we act, and maybe the origins of it, certain experiences that we had as a child. And then I also don't always think that, like, once you've done, say, a big somatic release, that those behaviors are just gone forever. You don't you might be somebody who's like quick to anger and you did this big somatic release about anger with your father or your mother. It's not like one day you just are no longer going to be an angry person. For the rest of your life, you're walking in a path of awareness. You're looking at the flame and saying, am I holding that vibration of anger right now at this current experience? And every experience is going to bring you a new opportunity to have awareness of the path that you're choosing in that. And the awareness from looking at our somatic experience, our traumas, can support us in that. I just think that like trauma work in and of itself, all alone, can sort of lose a soul into the depths and the mire of a swamp of like what has happened versus that happened for me. It gave me something, and it's part of my moving forward to this. And it's also a gift that I get to share with other people through my own hero's journey.
I didn't realize how much I agree with you until you expressed the not doing trauma work. I'd never really thought about it that way, Nicole, but at least for myself, right? Like I've noticed, like, okay, just anytime I've been, let's just say doing self work, right? Whatever form that is, right? I've always, excuse me, I had been always kind of under the, oh, well, I got to address this. I need to address this. I need to address this. I'm like, okay, like I never felt anything from that, right? Uh, but for me, it's more just like the kind of what you said, it's just like sitting back and like actually now seeing what comes up. And it might be something completely unrelated, right? A dog dying when I was 12 years old. I'm just making something up, right? Like, oh, it's like, okay, yeah, you know what? Like, I was sad about that, this and the other thing. And then all of a sudden, 45 minutes later, just like in freaking tears about what was actually there, right? But it's letting that initial like little thing like that you may not have realized, right? And this is the one thing I would say over like the last 3 years I've had like that real um culmination with of realizing like no, it doesn't have to be. me trying to go into those, I'll say, large traumas that I know that I've experienced. It's like, oh no, like maybe letting some of the small things come up, like, oh yeah, I did forget about that. And then what does that go? It might spiral into the large trauma, but it's that unwinding all along the way that was the work, and wasn't even didn't even realize it was going there at the beginning.
Right. Yeah. And I'm not opposed. I mean, I've done a lot of studies of trauma release. So I'm not trying to poo-poo in that modality at all because the biggest thing is it's there and it's going to come up.
Very much so. Yeah.
I think that the seeking, we're going to always hit our mark. And if our mark is to find like why we hate men, then you're going to keep finding more reasons why you hate men. But if you change your mark to something that's more like, why, show me how I can find and love my soulmate union, then as you get into relation and your dreams begin to happen, those things that are part of the blockages are going to come right in your face. And at this point in my life, I always joke like if shit hits the fan, I'm not like, oh no, why is this happening to me? I'm like, okay, I've asked for some form of leveling up. I've put into my field what it is I'm desiring to bring to myself. And this is coming up because there's something in me that isn't in alignment with what I've said and where I'm going. Yeah, that's how I like to do the trauma work. That's
And
why my left hip's hurting right now.
well, right, and it's exploring that, right? But and there's just what it is too. It's like, okay, we both have maybe had that realization, like this is what works for us, right? And maybe somebody else has to say, like, oh no, like I'm going into why I hate men. Like in that example, it's like, okay, maybe that does work for somebody else, right? And really knowing the difference, but knowing also that if it's just keeps more and more coming up about it, more and more coming up about it, and you never get anywhere, you're gonna have to find a different angle too.
Yeah, yeah. Otherwise, you're hardwiring your brain to look for what's not working and what's broken in you. And and I think that um, we have to find a balance with that work. Another fun example, I was doing a lot of family constellation work where you heal the lineage of somebody who's expressing it in their body, their DNA. And after a couple years of that coming through with clients, I, at one point just before a ceremony, said, you know what? If we inherit all this trauma and express it in our own way, we also have to inherit mastery. And so I invited all of the guides that had a mastery that was living in me and through me to come forth and show it to me. Not the guides, but the ancestors. And I spent the entire night like just in meditation, waiting, and I could feel the pull when an energy, an ancestor was there. And sometimes it would lead me to the coolest visions. Like I had one woman who was a mother of several children, and she had a basket. Like she would go and forage with a basket. And I don't have I'm not a purse girl. I carry a basket. And the other thing she showed me is like in the process of all of that, her biggest solace was this warm spring of water she would go to. And I just love baths. And she was showing me, she's like, your love of baths is through me. When you are there, I am with you. I'm having that experience through you still. I had so many instances of ancestors showing me little things. And what I realized was this is just so fun to me. I have a dog. I paid for a Labradoodle. I've had labs and I've had doodles, and I know what a Labradoodle is. And this dog is he's kind of, I used to call him short bus, but I don't anymore because I'm learning about my words. But he's a barker and he needs so much skill, attention. And upon a DNA test, I learned that he's like 70% border collie. And so I started learning about border collies and I'm like, oh, I get you now. And so like that's us. It's sometimes not just our trauma. It's we're wearing the mastery and the unhealed aspects of our ancestors. And I think that 90% of who we express who we are is really even that far back in our own conscious, like in our DNA programming.
That's pretty cool though. I love how you just framed that though. Um, right, it's everybody talks about like healing generational trauma, but I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk about. Well, I should say like people do acknowledge their ancestors, right, and like the masters like throughout history, but it's like I don't think anybody says like, oh yeah, like looks at the flip side of that. Like, it doesn't have to be just the trauma. Like, take the good with that too. Like, there's think of all of the good that has happened throughout history, not just the bad.
Yeah. And how is that expressing through me at this moment?
Wow. I see, and there's again of those how many tens of thousands of thoughts a day you can just bring that in rather than have it be, oh wow, that's a good one. That's a really good one.
Yeah. And so it's not spiritually bypassing the hard things or the heavy things. Like when they show up, I accept them. I radically accept them. I let them flow. I let them be felt. And knowing that I'm the author of my song, of my story, my next thing is like, all right, where do I want this story to go? How do I want to write the next chapter?
Nicole, I want to. Oh, okay, I'm going to start this with something from Terrence McKenna said. Right, so he talked of basically like at least as far as mushrooms, talked of like three ways to use them. Right, low dose, like kind of microdosing, right? As far as like general relaxation, like being able to connect with the earth, right? A moderate dose of like more of a socialization, like really being able to like open up, express around others, and then just like that heroic dose, like going all in. I'm just like, you're going, I mean, you're going somewhere else, right? Uh, if you wouldn't mind sharing maybe how you use any plant medicines that you do, but also like how you use those. The reason I'm asking, right, is uh, and I think I like the way that he describes that because yes, I've used very small doses, I've used like moderate doses, but then there's like a certain time where the reason I'm asking this is because you said during ceremony you were like actually meditating and focusing on it. Like I've also been in ceremony where it's like I, I mean, maybe I'm meditating, like, but I don't even know that I can get to that point to actually focus on meditation, like so being so far gone. Um, so is that something that you would uh, still do that meditation on all levels? Like, take that where you will, please.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah,
So first off, I not only work with myself ceremonially, but I help facilitate. And the
sure.
dose is different when you're holding the prayer and the peeler for the energy of a container. So when I'm speaking of the being aware of my thoughts, one of my roles is to pray with cedar, which directs the energies. And whether you work with cedar or anything else, your thoughts are directing the energies. And so when somebody has put their consciousness and their energy in my responsibility field, I work with the medicine to attune to it, but I don't work into the ego dissolving dose that I might on my own. The second thing is that, we call these plant medicines, and they are when we have healing to be done. And when we're healed, they can also become plant teachers.
That's
And
an interesting way to separate the two.
yeah, and so sometimes it's a medicine and sometimes it's a teacher. Typically, when I ingest, know that I'm going to be going one of three places. I'm either going to be going to the hospital because there's some healing to be done, and that's where the emotions and the somatic comes out, and that's when they're medicines. Sometimes I go to school, and this is where we get the downloads and that like finally figuring it all out for yourself. And then sometimes I go to church, and this is not like church, but this is like, oh, now I know what God is. I know what I am and spirit is. So,
And well, I want to not just church, like all of those were like metaphors for those places. Those weren't the actual physical locations that you're going to.
yeah, so they're like usually that's where my journey will be. Sometimes I'm lucky and I get all three in a night. I go to the hospital. And then next thing I know, I'm in church and I'm like, oh, there's the light. And then all of a sudden it's school and there's like all the puzzle pieces of questions I've been asking the universe coming in. And I can't get to my journal fast enough. And I think that, well, first off, with microdosing, it's such a beautiful opportunity and gift for people who uh, are hesitant of the macro, hesitant of losing all of that control. It's like the difference between, have you ever done one of those olive oil liver cleanses?
No.
Oh, they're intense. It's drinking, it's like preparing the liver for a week, and then one night you drink a cup of olive oil and you lay on your right side and your liver kind of spits out a bunch of stones and you feel like you're really sick. You probably look green and you don't sleep very well that night. So that's like a macrodose. I every morning like to drink a little lemon water and some salt and a teaspoon of olive oil. And I consider that like a little way of getting my bile going and my liver flowing, and the lemon and the bitterness helps with my digestive juices. And so we can choose to do a big dose and get a big healing cleansing, which make sure you have time to integrate after I've done a liver cleanse. I want to spend a weekend relaxing, not going to work. Or we can choose to do the microdoses. Like there's some incredible, like the psilocybin microdoses are so good for anxiety and depression, and I've actually seen people come out of dementia working with that. And then they're showing studies now where Wachuma can support women through the perimenopausal phase because it kind of works more with the dopamine receptors than the serotonin receptors. Um, and so we've got like the micro for the daily, and I think that again used not as a antidepressant or something to cover bad lifestyle choices, but as a adjunct to the efforts and changes you're trying to make already can be so beneficial. Working in a solo way with these medicines, it's really important that you have a deep-rooted connection to your life already. We would call that like a solid ground, something you want to come back to. An understanding of spiritual hygiene is important. You know, we wash out our armpits and put deodorant in, hopefully the healthy kind every day, because we want to not have bacteria and smell good and have friends. And there's some truth to that in the spiritual world. There's a lot of sticky energies. And if you're going in with the intention to move these out, you should have some tools and some know-how to keep it all cleaned up in the area that you're working in and cleaning the area before you work in it, set and setting. And then if you've never done this before, I don't really recommend like just going in with like what Terrence McKenna would suggest, 5 grams, a hero dose, until you've had a skilled practitioner of energy to support you in one or two at least ceremonies so that you can start to get your bearings. I find like when my mind gets the loudest and starts to run in the fear things is when I'm on the precipice of a big energy release that's going to change who I am for the rest of my life. And my ego is very scared of that. Yeah.
And that's uh that it's that like yeah, you don't want to settle into, you don't want to give in, you don't want to give in, you don't want to give in, and all of a sudden, oh, there it is. Like you're
Yeah.
not stopping it. Like it's coming. Like embrace it as best you can, but it's not always going to be easy.
Yeah. Yeah. And like as an herbalist, I really love, it's not just the psychedelic plants that have medicine, but looking at how the plant grows. So psilocybin, for example, is underground. It's in the dark. I don't know if this has been your experience, but for me, the first 80% of my journey can be kind of in the heaviness, in the darkness of what is up for me just before the mushroom is about to die. Like the only reason why a mushroom becomes a mushroom and sprouts and fruits is because its life is in danger, its way of being in the soil. And
Right.
so it's only at that darkest moment that it comes into the light. And so we can actually begin to learn that those plants are teaching us from their own journeys. Mushrooms can take you into a very scary, dark place if you don't know that that's naturally where you're supposed to be and be able to breathe and have tools to go through that. And then And then next thing you know, you're in the light and you're like, wow, that was the most amazing thing I've ever experienced.
Cool. Would you mind sharing about the Wachuma there for, you said for menopause then?
You know, I will be honest, I haven't actually seen the studies. This was
Okay.
I heard off of a podcast with Dr. Mindy Peltz. She wrote the
Okay.
book called It's Like a Girl. She was in the process of studying perimenopause. And I'm curious, I would love, if she ever listens to this, I would love to get a hold of those studies. But basically, they were saying that, in perimenopause, a woman's hormones begin to deplete. Our estrogen, our pregnenolone, our progesterone, all of these things that make us feel loved and connected. So, more divorces happen during perimenopause than any other time of women's lives, menopause and perimenopause. And we will literally do what we can do to try to get that feeling that those hormones would give us of connectedness and community. We'll go shopping. We, I think that we go into debt, credit card debt more often at that time of our life. And so she was saying on one of her podcasts that early studies are showing that a microdose of Wachuma can feel the receptors of where we're like craving that like dopamine stimulation, and it's a little different than the way the psilocybin microdosing works.
Well, I think part of what I find interesting about that, right? Wachuma is grandfather
Well,
versus ayahuasca's grandmother, even. That's why I was just surprised from that association, even.
and its name, like it actually translates to no head. It's Quechuan and it means no head.
Okay.
So Wachuma is the medicine of the heart. It helps us to begin to communicate from our heart. And it is a man. I mean, so funny. I had to move my cute little San Pedro plant I mean, that is definitely a male plant. And sometimes this is my own personal nickname for it, is hippie Adderall. Because if you look at the way the plant grows, it's point A to point B. And if you want to get something done, it'll help you get out of your head, out of your belief systems of I'm not good enough, I write this wrong, I can't do this. And it helps you go into your heart. When it's done with a macro dose, it has the ability to support you in communicating with nature and the plants.
Yes.
And in
Yes.
turn, usually the guides that are supporting you all your life will also be more easily heard.
Yeah. I just, I think there's probably so much more that's, I'm gonna say just taboo, right? Like in society of like these aren't going to be studied for all of these things. And not that I really care if they're studied or not, right? It's like, okay, do you use it and does it work for you? That's really all that I care about anyway. But I think the point in which so many people are going through like those harder transitions in life, uh, what else could they be using? In this case, like watching that we're just discussing, right? It's like it can be there for somebody, and it's it's such a beautiful thing that that could really just help on so many levels. I think as far as like just being able to do that healing, that oh yeah, like just everybody goes through that, like just get through it, you'll be fine. Like, well, I think there's a better way to support that.
Well, and let's take that one more step further, if I could. You said, what could they be using? You know, these plant medicines or plant teachers are like an elevator. They take us right to the top. They show us what it's like to live sometimes from a full vessel. And eventually that elevator goes down. So, how do we fill up our own vessel with the same magic that those plants are working with? So, to the degree that we're not getting sunlight, that we're not touching the ground, that we're not sourcing and drinking pure, clear, clean water that we're grateful for, that we're infusing the water with our gratitude and our appreciation versus our worry, right? MK Ultra, this is listening. Then, in my opinion, we don't have right to go asking these plants for their healing work until we're doing our own work. and then meeting them in the center. I once, I'm sorry, I have a dog that is like, I
Oh,
want to be on this podcast.
sure.
Get in here, Goose. You don't know if you could hear him scratching, but I sure could. I once was supporting a medicine man who would come up from Mexico. And in the after affairs, most of us would bring like a potluck, right? Have you ever seen that? And I was asked to create the invites, and I put in there, please make sure your potluck item is organic, and natural. And he was concerned about that. He says, "Well, what if people can't afford that?" And I says, "Then why are they coming to a $400 day with medicine? Because really, we need to make sure, just like, you've probably heard in health and wellness things where we take somebody to go look at their Porsche out front when they're telling us they can't afford like grass-fed beef. It's like, these should be used not as the way out, but as an adjunct to our rhythms in connection with the nature that they come from. Yeah. So, I mean, these are so supportive. And if we aren't grounded in the rhythms in the first place, they can also be disorientating. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a unbelievably important point to make, I think, right? It's like here are things where it's, and I'm not saying you can't try it, but it's like start slow, start slow. Like don't let your ego get in the way at the beginning of this, um, because like you said, you're going straight to the top if you go too hard, and it's a long way down too, and it's a hard fall if you're not careful.
And oftentimes those downloads or that school gives me like a to-do list. I have a something called a "I ya gonna do it" list. And I always say like if you're not following the wisdom or the guidance you received, that's the sure way to go on a bad trip if you come back. It's like not packing your bags. Yeah. And so, sometimes we do need just one of those journeys to shake us up enough to start doing those things. My preference, though, to not shock somebody in that way is to suggest that they begin working with microdosing while trying to change the things so that their body is ready to meet the plant. Yeah. Wow. I didn't know this was going to go this direction, but it seems fitting.
Well, and so I kind of want to share something then too, right? It's okay. The first psychedelic I ever used was ayahuasca, right? Uh, Shaman that I worked with though is like even before I got to work with him, it was like he's like, come over and hang out for a couple hours, right? Like that was just like he would not let me even entertain it if he didn't, I'll say, feel it was right in any way, right? And another one of my friends actually has gone and worked with him, right? And we've uh, we've been offered different things, right? And just other things like whether it's snuff blown up our nose, like whether it's eye drops, like for vision, like, and he's done it. He's basically reading us, like knowing what, and sometimes he'll offer more, sometimes he won't, right? So it's like also some people are just ready for more, some people aren't, right? And it's like be accepting of kind of where you're at, and for some, whoever the guide is that is with you, it's like let them do their thing. Like they're there to support you. They probably know a lot more about what's about to happen than you can even begin to imagine. So they're going to help guide you like what's best for you too. So it's like might be smaller, might be a little bit larger, whatever it is. It's enjoy the experience. Like take it for what it is, and then do the work. Yes, obviously before, and do the work after. Otherwise, it's just still going to be a waste of time and a waste of resources, really.
Yeah, yeah, it can be for sure. It can be a party.
Okay, so kind of going off because we touched on menopause, Nicole. On some other podcasts that you were on within probably the last year or two, I went back and listened to some, and one that I found fascinating was um, after about the age of 35, women start to put on about a half pound of fat a year, I believe. Right? Is that
Mhm.
I? I found that just fascinating, but also where you kind of discuss this, because I think this is such an important role, um, as far as just the feminine goes. Like I've had a lot more male guests on recently, so that's why I want to dive into some of this. This is good, because I also will notice for myself, right? It's like, okay, so I turned 40 now, right? And it's like, yeah, I'm definitely attracted to a different, I'll say, body than I was before, right? It's like I'm not talking like soul. I'm not talking about like um just I'm talking like let's just talk about the purely physical feminine form, right? It's like I want women to also understand why this is important, because I think they don't necessarily realize guys like that too, where it's like, yeah, they want that counterpart um in them, right? Like it's like, yeah, that's meant to happen, and guys still are gonna think it's sexy. Like, don't worry about that. Uh, you still can, you can still be you, and it's gonna be great. Don't worry.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny because I'm not sure exactly when that podcast was, but since then I've kind of been in it myself as a woman and
Yeah.
gaining that half pound of weight. And, I was saying that back at 35. I'm like, oh, whatever, a half pound of body fat. And then I got to 47 and I'm like, whew, okay, really testing my self-worth. But, since then I've also learned like there are several different types of fat we can gain. So the question is like, are we gaining a half pound of visceral fat?
Sure.
That's not good. That's suffocating our organs. But there is fats that are healthy, like our subcutaneous, our subcutaneous fat, our superficial fat. That shouldn't go away. We really shouldn't see abs on a woman. That's like a big formula for adrenal fatigue. It doesn't mean that she shouldn't have abdominal muscles. They just should also have a nice soft layer, a
It's
protective
not
layer.
gonna be a rip six pack, basically.
Because
Yeah.
ultimately, yeah, that fat is where our body is going to get estrogen from as our ovaries stop making it, right? Some ways that we can kind of minimize the amounts of visceral fat versus subcutaneous fat and like boost up subcutaneous is, once we're properly fed and feasted as women, fasting here and there can be really beneficial. And the key is not to take it out of context of like being properly fed, you know, having your blood sugar balanced and then going into a little bit of a stressor metabolically of like 18 hours or 24 hours once in a while without a meal can really help the autophagy and to break down the fat that's like weaved within our organs that's kind of choking them off. The cold exposure that we can get, not the dark, the deep, deep ice baths that you have to do for like 11 minutes and do your Wim Hof breath. That's pretty stressful. But like we are, I don't know if you've heard of the book, The Comfort Crisis. I highly
Yeah.
recommend it. It's so good.
Michael Easter, I think, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Just this concept that like we go from 72-degree monitored houses to 72-degree cars when in reality our bodies like there's a distress and then there's eustress. And eustress is the kind of stress that's applied that your body can bounce back from. And the more we give our bodies that like fluctuation of something to bounce back from, the stronger we are. But if you don't use it, you lose it. And we've lost a lot of our ability to survive in the wild. And so the more we can titrate and emulate more wild conditions, like sleeping on the earth, we would have cool mattresses, cool earth, right? So yeah, it's funny because like just last year I kind of got to this place where I'm like, all right, I'm doing all the healthy things and it doesn't feel healthy. And so I started applying some other things that were less about the perfect diet and more about a little bit of stressors. At the seeing the morning light, seeing night light, really getting strict about the light in my eyes and the blue light. I love that you're wearing your glasses.
Well,
And
again, because we're on a time difference, like I look out and it's dark.
yeah,
So yeah, I
yeah.
gotta have mine on at this point for sure.
And I'll be putting mine on in about an hour here for my
Yeah.
next appointment online. But it was funny because we hear about this stuff on a podcast and we like maybe do it or maybe do 20% of it. But last February, I really committed to being super disciplined to my light exposure, to hot and cold exposure. So I probably sauna 3 times a week. And at this point, I ice bath every morning before I go work out. I titrated it up because there's a good time for people. It would have been too much stress for me to do it in the beginning.
Yeah.
And if I was like underslept or something, I might not do the ice bath, like really listening to the body. But as I've like increased my discomfort, oh, my body is so much happier. And watching it go from having visceral fat to subcutaneous fat, I'm like, okay. So I'm glad that you brought up this, like, well, women should gain a half a pound of fat. Yes, and there are different types of fat. So what kind are we letting be on us? You know, if I want it to be that subcutaneous, which is the baby fat that keeps my skin looking young, I'm going to be moving a lot. And I'm going to be going into hot and cold exposure and really protective of my joy and my light. Yeah. And and I've even, like I said, been working with fasting and aligning with that has been so nice. Very, very healing to the digestive tract.
I mean, so much to go off of that, but I couldn't. So for me, it's this is the coldest winter I remember ever having. It's like I I choose not to really take much in the way of cold showers because I still do Tai Chi a half hour every morning, a half hour every night. When I'm doing Tai Chi, I mean, the wind chill will probably be negative tonight. So it's like, it's still cold. Like, and I'm doing that a half hour at a time. So it's like, yeah, that's my cold exposure. And it's like,
No,
find what works for you though.
yeah,
That's what I want to go with this is like, it doesn't have to be an ice bath because I've always been like, I still struggle with ice baths. Doesn't mean I don't do it, but I still struggle with it. Being in the cold though, I can embrace that. Like I can under layer, and I feel much better with that. And I just do it usually for a little bit longer period of time. It's like, yeah, I might be shivering by the end of it still.
yeah,
But it's like find the way that works for you, and you can still make that part of your life then too.
absolutely. Like not everyone has an ice bath.
Oh,
And
there's that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You um getting in rhythm with nature somehow. Yeah, taking a walk in my t-shirt in this cold winter has been cold exposure. Yeah, it's just like, letting your temperature in the house be 65 instead of 70. And, caveat, if somebody has thyroid issues or adrenal issues, that's not going to be good for them. That's a stress that's too much. So, all these podcasts and suggesting certain things, we have to be like aware that every body is different and what's going to be a distress for one body might be a eustress for another. I'm a big fan of the word titration. I'm learning that. Like everything in the beginning of my health journey was so black and white, like, oh, you take this much vitamin C and this much vitamin D or this much sauerkraut. And now I'm like, oh, well, everything is going to have a Goldilocks zone. And it's probably best if you start working your way up to that and also recognizing, if you've gone past that Goldilocks.
And the Goldilocks zone can apply for absolutely anything. It doesn't have to be just what we've been discussing here. It's like it could be anything and everything.
Anything but my bank account, that can go ahead and go pop a bear.
Well, so I want to circle back to something you talked about like at the beginning, right? The Six Foundation principles, right? And you're on thinking right now, right? And the word that's come up a few times has been balance, right? But it's understanding also that it doesn't mean it's a constant balance, right? Like this is a fluctuating balance of all of these things that we're talking about. Because if you try and just balance all of them all at the same time, like it's just never gonna work. Like, and you're probably
No.
never gonna really strive to what you want to be. Like you'll probably be mediocre or maybe a little bit better at everything, but not very good at any of these things. Versus if you take the time to hammer down on one thing, whether it's hot, cold, whether it's food, whether it's light, whatever it is, whether it's thought. Uh, and like I said, it's hammer down on that for 3 months. Balance isn't just necessarily on a daily basis, a monthly, a yearly, a decade, whatever it is. Like the balance is going to come over time.
Right. Yep. And there will be a time to push and the tides come in and there will be a time to not. One of the things I love as an entrepreneur is the universe. I always trust in the universe. And it's so interesting in the beginning days when I would have a windfall of clients, I'd be like, I've arrived. And then all of a sudden it would dry up and I'd be like, and there would be like a fear of like, well, am I going to be able to pay the bills in 6 months or in a month? And really what I've come to the conclusion now is that the universe is like, all right, you have a flow when you're full. And when your cup is empty, we're providing a pause for you to refill. So stop stressing when you're in your refill and go and enjoy a little bit of refill. So, I've also made an agreement with the universe that, as long as they keep me within a buffer of like being in a comfortable place and I don't have to get into a stress level to be in the refill, which they've fulfilled that agreement. It's nice. And then there were times in my life where that wasn't happening. When I was first breaking into the wellness industry, I was a single mom. My daughter was 4. I was working a different job to pay for my schooling. So I was also using the money from that job to pay for the beginnings of my clinic. And so I had to work 7 days a week for 4 years between that job and building a clinic and going to school and making the bacon and paying for it too. Because yeah,
And
and the
that's not balance. Like that is not balance.
no, and I didn't have a lot of room for straying from my Six Foundation principles, but at the same time it was because if I hadn't of, where I might have ended up at without that push, just as long as I didn't maintain that, like once I got to a place where I could, and it's funny because I say that, and to the truth is the universe put in its own stopper for me because I wasn't doing it for myself. There was a rupture that occurred, and a partner of mine had a heart attack, and I had to like just and just stop everything. And again, it was a gift from the universe. All of our pains, all of our issues are the universe supporting our purpose and showing us, yeah, you can stop because we're
And
gonna make you.
well, no, it's again, it's one of those like taking that time to listen, to look, to feel, to all of these things because it's all around no matter what. Like the universe is providing it, right? Which is it can be very challenging in that time of, oh shit, like I haven't had any new clients in 5 weeks. Like these ones are all starting to do really well. What's going to happen here now over, like you said, another month, like another 6 months, whatever it is? Yeah, that can be a stressor, or it can also be a, oh, I have slowed down a little bit. Now I've been able to uh, study a new technique that all of a sudden you're really starting to get good at, and the next day, 5 more calls come in, right? Because that was what you needed to slow down to learn that to be able to share with somebody else now.
100%. And you go to that next course, it's all about lumbar spinal pathologies, and you got 4 voicemails of people asking about their lower back.
For me, it's been actually visceral manipulation, where I started with that just at the end of last year, diving into it, and I've now already been starting to get scripts from doctors. Like patients are going like and asking their doctors like because I still practice physical therapy, so it's like it's just the easiest way that they're going to come. Like the doctor's like, they do that, and the patient's like, yeah, I want to try it. And like every doctor so far, like it just has had the discussion. It's just like, yeah, let's see what happens, right? Because they just have no idea. But it's like now it's all of a sudden just like manifesting so many different ways. So it's go learn something new, like see what you can do and have fun with it.
Well, and how cool, like the organs and the manipulation of that. I'm curious what your experience has been with the emotional patterns as you manipulate the stuck organ.
It's it is very subtle. I will say that, right? And I think where I have to be aware of it now for people than when they walk in, because a lot of times like they don't necessarily notice like a crazy physical change all of a sudden, right? So they're like, yeah, okay, what's going on? One patient very specifically though, right? Uh, she's been on antacids, I think she said for like 20, 25 years, right? and started doing some stuff. And she's like, Nick, I feel like I can eat food again. Like she said, she barely eats. Like, and it's funny because like she has that. She is round as could possibly be for her upper body, and then it looks like she's walking on toothpicks, right? Uh, and she's like, I don't know, I'm just never hungry. Like I actually don't eat much, and really, she doesn't. Like she barely eats. She drinks a little bit of tea and some water and very little food. But she's like, finally, just it's like she hasn't noticed any physical, as far as like necessarily like pain changes, but it's she goes, nah, my relationship with food is changing. So like that's an interesting one to me. It's like she's recognizing that like, okay, we're doing different mobilizations to the stomach, to the sphincters, like for her, like kidneys, liver I've been working on. And she's noticing now that specific change, just like a relationship with food. She's like, I haven't had that in decades. So like that's mind-boggling to me.
Cool. I love
So
it.
yeah, it can certainly change a lot on so many different levels, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Nicole.
I've
Okay.
correlated with cleansing as I go through different organs and help people that, traditional Chinese medicine assigns emotions to certain organs. And as they say yes to maybe a liver cleanse, or a colon cleanse, like the colon houses grief, like even before they start to bring in the bentonite clays or zeolites that I might work with, the grief begins to make its self known in their life. Like it's like they're creating energy on a pathway, just like when we do medicines or we put into an intention what it is that we want to create. If there's something that's in the way, so if there's something in the way of the colon letting go, then that's going to be felt along with the physical purging of it. uh yeah, it's fun and wild to have them come back and be like, you were right. Or even like when I was younger and I'd go into a liver detox and I'd warn my family like, hey, mom's gonna do a liver detox. My daughter would pull a funny and she'd go and jump under the blanket and go, oh no, because the liver houses anger. And I would be a lot more short-tempered, and that's why I would warn the family. So I was just curious, what is the stomach again? What is this? What emotion is the stomach?
Well, I mean, like self-worth is big for the stomach. Like what else?
Worth nourishment. Interesting.
Yeah, I'm trying. I see those are things that I've not. We've gone over in the classes, right? But it's like I have to look at the charts because I just don't have all those memorized yet.
Cool. Yeah.
Nicole, like as we're kind of coming to a close here, is there anything else you would like to just share with everybody? And then just anything, resources, websites, etc., that you kind of want to steer anybody towards as they're interested to learn more about you.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Yeah, like keep it fun. This Earth School has a playground, and if we forget to go to recess, then we kind of miss the whole reason that we're here, right? And my websites, I to work with me personally, there's one called the How To Healer or NicoleDevaney.com. Both will get you to my site. Uh, to look at the women's groups, so I've been holding women's moon circles for 10 years now. We teach higher education to the women of Salt Lake. They make donations, and our donations go out to different women's charities. For 10 years, we've been gathering by the moon, super celebrating that in that community. We provide amazing like women's soirees and events and weekends, and that website is called To Remember. Com, called To Remember, because ultimately that's what we're here to do, is kind of remember our divinity, not discover it. So it's there, it's always been there. And yeah, those are my best ways to, I guess. Yeah, I got Instagram and the handles of Nicole the Czech Goddess, but other than that, that's where you're gonna find me.
Cool. This has been a fun recess, I think, in Earth School this evening, getting to talk. So thank you again so much for sharing. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's so good to see you again, Nick. And you're looking great. And send so much love to those kids. You've only got a few more years.
Make the most of it, right? Always.
Right. Right. They're good at recess.
Yes. That then we want to talk other teachers, right? There are some serious teachers, both in school and on the playground.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you again.
You're welcome. Keep up the good work.